This is the Supernaturalist podcast show. My guest today is Jay Koopman. Jay is on the pastoral team at HRock Church, where he serves the vision of Che On in the oversight of the youth and young adults ministries. Jay is a bridge builder, living out the non-compromising realities of the gospel by mentoring and discipling many in the sports and entertainment industry within LA. Jay's intense passion for Jesus has brought a message of hope, healing, and restoration to a generation of young people. Together with his wife, Brittany, they endeavor to see families walking and living in health and wholeness. In this episode, we talk about some of the interesting dynamics taking place between the church and LA. We talk about the bridge between the generals and the next generation, and his passion to raise up leaders that are aligned with kingdom leaders within the body of Christ. If you're curious about what Jesus is doing in one of the most influential cities in America, you're going to love this conversation with Supernaturalist Jay Koopman right here, right now on the Supernaturalist podcast show. Let's go.
One author, and she's very popular, and she's one of those women who's like every moment counts, and she's churning her own butter, looking out in the horizon with her like 6 homeschooled kids, and I'm like, I am a failure, I suck. Now we're talking.
Jay, what's up?
Hey, man. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. It's good to be in your hood.
Yeah, you are in the hood, for sure.
Yeah. So, dude.
Do you like your doors?
Yeah, exactly. I got motion detectors. I took black gaffer tape over the motion lights last night because they kept turning on, but yeah.
We call this Hollywood where you're at. You're not
really?
in Hollywood. You're right on the side. It's called Hollywood.
I should have consulted with somebody before I booked this place. So we were driving in last night. I was like, so, dude, born and raised.
I actually wasn't born here, but I spent most of my adult years here.
I spent most of my days. Got one little fight.
I'm actually from South Carolina.
Okay.
But I came out here to go to Bible college from an AG school.
AG?
Assemblies of God. On. Well, I was a graduate of Teen Challenge. And so,
really?
When you're coming out of Teen Challenge, a drug addict, wanting to be in ministry, you don't have any money, there's a school that you can go to really just get credentialed in the Assemblies of God, where you can fundraise your tuition. So I came out here just for that and just fell in love with LA and have pretty much been here ever since. I mean, I've moved around a little bit, but I've always came back to LA. It's funny, I've lived in LA 3 times. I've moved to LA 3 times, so I think I've been back to LA more than the Beastie Boys has.
Come on. And you're at Harvest Rock.
Yeah, HRock. It's Harvest Rock, but they call it HRock now.
It's HRock now, which is definitely cooler. So HRock, and you're really, dude, you're kind of like salt and pepper in that you're kind of like on everything there. You're kind of involved in everything.
Yes.
And an incredible leadership call on your life. I thought it'd be fun actually. So I met you at a HIM conference.
Yes.
So I went there with Jeremy and Ivan Roman.
Yep.
And after one of the meetings, we went out to eat. And this is a while back, so you probably don't even remember the conversation, but I was sitting across the table from you and telling you about circumstance in our church.
Right.
And you just started talking about alignment, the importance of alignment. Yeah. And I'm not like a Donald Trump apprentice kind of guy, but I came home and I fired a guy based off of that conversation because there was such urgency and immediacy on that particular conversation. And actually what it did was it was a very difficult thing, but it was the right thing to do. But it saved us a lot of additional hurt and pain and probably some bad things that could have happened if that wouldn't have been addressed swiftly and urgently. So just starting right off, man, I definitely see this from afar, watching this incredible leadership call on your life and seeing you do all these different things. And it's just cool that you would create this time and space in your calendar to sit down and kind of dive into some stuff.
Oh, man. Well, I mean, I'm so honored to be here, and thank you. And just as you sharing that story with me, man, it just makes me think about, a lot of times when there's friction in someone's life and they're not aligned, there's something going on in their heart. Because when your heart is pure, it's easy to align, and so, whether it's an agenda or whether it's sin or shame or something, a lot of times when we as people are rebelling or upset or blaming others, is because we're really not looking at ourselves. And so it's a great way to see someone's heart when they're aligned, especially with somebody like yourself who just loves Jesus, man. You're on fire, bro. You've hosted revival, and I mean, even in some of the, I think if I can remember, it was a very hard season in your life when revival broke out, just because of what happened with your family. And I can relate to you in that because of my parents. I don't know if you know, both of my parents are deceased.
Oh, wow.
And so, wasn't it your dad that passed?
Yeah,
right?
my dad passed. Yeah, in that year of extended meetings and everything.
And you kept going for it. And I mean, bro, that alone, to a guy like me, that's mind blowing. Because I know when my mom passed away, it was the hardest time of my life, bro.
Wow.
But back to that, I just liked you off the top, and I could just tell, especially being our age, we're dealing with another generation. We're not dealing with, it's a different time. Kids are seeing stuff that are different. And so most of the people that we impact, of course, you and I impact older people as well. But I'm saying the ones that we're going to try to raise up, they didn't learn the stuff that we're learning today. I'm sorry, that we learned back in the day,
Well, yeah, we're in an interesting spot, aren't we? Because we're kind of like a bridge generation.
Yes.
It's kind of that place where we're still running with ma's and pops.
Yep.
And yet there's a younger generation that's looking to us for leadership. So it's very interesting. It can be kind of a tricky thing. Your spiritual papa, I call him Papa Che because Jeremy calls him that.
Yeah.
He's not necessarily my papa, but love him and just honor him and respect him. But like you're doing life with that guy. Like he has really imparted to you and taught you a lot.
Yeah.
You were doing a lot of stuff before Papa Che and before Che on, if people don't know who we're talking about. But what is that like? Like here's this guy that's very apostolic. He's a visionary.
Yeah.
And what does that look like for you, as far as it could be just practically or just as far as how you're posturing yourself? Is that just super easy running with a guy like Che?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Papa Che and Mama Sue and just the whole On family. They're just some of the coolest people ever. When you get to know them, they're very cool. They're very family oriented. He's very graceful, to be really honest. But at the same time, he is an apostolic general. And I think for me, all the years of journeying with God in ministry, because I've been in full-time ministry since I was 18 years old.
Okay.
You're talking about going through a lot of what I would say brokenness, also celebration moments where, I had great runs, where I saw, massive growth in our young adult youth movement or traveling the world. But even through that, I think a lot of where the Lord just sanded me down to prepare me to really work with somebody like that. And I think I love that I'm aligned with Papa Che. I believe in alignment. I believe in submission. But I got to be honest, I think we all come out of this selfish mentality as we're born into a selfish world.
Sure.
So I'm grateful that for the first half of my ministry, all that stuff was being knocked out of me so that I would be able to handle someone like him and his caliber and know how to align, know how to really be a servant, know how to really not have my own agenda, but to be able to serve his. Because I think most people think that just comes easy. No, that came through hardcore discipline, discipleship. I mean, I've been rebuked before by older leaders back in my younger days, like been on discipline for little things, So it's an awesome opportunity, but I definitely had to be molded for this. You know what I mean? And I think the way that I was molded, a lot of young people today don't understand that is God. That's how God works, you know, and if you can stay in this thing long enough, you'll see the things that you don't like, you'll see on the other side how beautiful they really were because they made you into. I look back at a lot of stuff, I'm like, I hated that moment in my life. But if it wasn't for that moment, I would not be able to handle this crazy situation that me and Papa Che are working through right now in other people's lives. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so yeah, it's a beautiful thing to serve with him, and I think I'm more like an Elisha to an Elijah. Wherever he goes, I want to go. Whatever he does, I want to do. And I think him knowing my heart, just to really help build what God's put on his heart, there's naturally a trust in what God is doing in my life and the things that he has, he's given me the grace to do underneath his ministry.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I would imagine that there's a lot of young guys. I mean, I remember even periods of my life at a certain point where you long for that. Like you long to have like a spiritual father, somebody
Right.
that will that'll tell you the truth. Somebody that'll be like, here are all these like hacks that I've learned. Like you don't have to waste years, because I did that. I wasted years. You don't have to do that. It's what you need to do.
Right.
I think a lot of guys, they're longing for that kind of like dynamic. But I think maybe sometimes it's easy to get like just broken over that and then bitter,
right?
Because and then even judgmental, because I've seen a lot of that even in the charismatic stream, where there's kind of these almost these bitter root judgment divisions that try to separate generations,
right?
And you see that stuff popping up in different ministries. You see these bitter statements that are passionate and they get a lot of likes on Facebook regarding this, that, and the other. But you're actually doing it. You're actually doing ministry with a younger generation and with an older generation, and you're running together. And that's very rare.
Yeah. Well, I got to be honest. I think where a lot of guys don't know how to have like what I have with Papa Che, I think if I could just give them some tips, first of all, these guys are busy. Mm-hmm. They've got busy lives, and they, Papa Che is running around doing a million things. So I'm not very needy as a person. Mm-hmm. Now, don't get me wrong. I learned that years ago. And secondly, sometimes we have unhealthy expectations on these generals. Does that make sense? It's like Mama Cindy Jacobs. I don't call Mama Cindy. I don't bother her. But when she's in our church, I spend a lot of time with her. That's maybe once or twice a year. She's like a mom to me too, but I know how to honor her time and appreciate what I can get and not have this unhealthy expectation of what Papa Che, what I need from him. Now, if I needed to call him, he'd answer the phone right now. Mm-hmm. But I think I respect his boundaries, and I also, I look at it as there's seasons when God puts men and women of God around you, and you may have an opportunity to have an upgrade into their life. But those seasons don't start out as you being with them on every decision they make. A lot of times it starts out where it's a very tough season and you may not get their time, and there may be division or different things that break out around that season, that how you respond to that and how you honor and when I say honor, not just honor your leader, but honor that season and not be a pouty person. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Sometimes they will see, these men of God and women of God will see that you're really in this thing for real. You know what I mean? Like you're not jumping out of your lane. You're not getting upset at stuff that doesn't make sense. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, yeah. Your yes is important to you. And so when you say yes to something, you got to say yes to it. And you and I both know this. A lot of times when the Lord gives us something to do, it's like it doesn't look anything like we thought it was going to look. It's like God gives you a promise to do something, but then the process of getting there is crazy. So I think with working with these generals, people have these doors open, but when that process starts taking place, how you handle those moments, will cause those generals and God to be able to say, now I can trust you to have even a greater relationship and greater influence into that situation.
Yeah. Awesome, man. So we did a podcast this morning, our first podcast here in LA, with a gal that moved here from Seattle. Right. And so I know there's like this exodus that's taking place right now from people leaving Seattle to come here to LA. And a big part of it is this narrative that there's like this, and this might actually trigger some of our audience. We have more of a mystical kind of charismatic, kind of revival-y kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But there's this idea that there's like this very new kind of wineskin move of God. And you got all these churches that are not meeting in church buildings, they're meeting in nightclubs. And you got these rumors of of all these celebrities that are coming to churches, and even secret churches, underground churches where you have to be in the industry or you're not even allowed to come to those environments. Even talk about the Kardashians showing up at churches and that kind of thing. So, bro, my question for you is like, what's happening in your city? Is Is this a move of God, or is this kind of some sort of reverse engineering, kind of like playing the exclusive card in order to have a certain? Are we branding? Or, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
What's happening, Jay? Tell us.
Well, it's a great question, and I've been in this city longer than most of those guys. I mean, I was youth pastoring in Los Angeles before social media. So you're talking about before MySpace and Facebook, and so back in the day, and I mean, LA used to be this place where it was really, really hood, and it was really, really Hollywood. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And when I first landed in Los Angeles, there was a guy being chalked out, on the street, meaning like somebody been murdered on the street that I was on.
Right.
And so, I was in this little city in Southgate, and Southgate is next to Watts and Compton. It's the hood, bro. It's basically the Latin hood.
I've heard of Compton.
Yeah, it's basically the Latin version of Compton.
Yeah, okay.
And so, we had revival breakout, man, in a city that was very dangerous, that most people were afraid to live.
Yeah.
In that city, we had everybody driving from Hollywood, real actors that are A-list actors coming out there, and they were coming to a Pentecostal revival, bro. I'm talking about people getting slayed in the spirit. I mean, demons casting out of people. It was crazy. During that time, there was this underlying thing to where if somebody from the industry came to your church, they wanted to not talk about the industry.
Okay.
They wanted to feel like I can go to church and you care about me. And so it was like I was working with a few, very famous people that if I even breathed that I was working with them to anybody, they would not trust me. And so it was like this, I want to come to church, but can you protect me? Because it was not cool back in the day to be a Christian and work in Hollywood. I mean, it's still hard today, but it's way cooler now because of some of these influential, people in Hollywood that are claiming Christianity. Mm-hmm. It's actually way easier now. So then all of a sudden they started these house of prayers. I really feel that the house of prayers in Los Angeles and Pasadena and Hollywood, I feel that when we started praying together, these Bible studies broke out. And just, kudos to the house of prayer people for having that, because I remember there was none of that. Now, there was the Cheons and the Lou Engles, but really they were hosting revival meetings that that people from all over the world were coming to, and there were great churches like Jack Hayford and stuff like that. But there wasn't this cool hipster scene that you see right now where it's like, you got Kanye and Bieber and all these guys that are super radical for Jesus. And so, all of a sudden Judah, and if anybody knows Judah, Judah came from a very charismatic background. Yeah. Wendell Smith was, everything from Supernatural to Judah was part of the Call to Judah was part of G12, which is a very aggressive movement that I was a part of making disciples.
Yeah.
And, when Judah decided to come out here, God really trusted him with this Bible study that's now just broken out. And I think anybody can be honest. Judah has a certain gift and a certain swag that's really built for what he's doing. I mean, the guy's just gifted,
Absolutely.
And so one of my friends, Elijah Waters, who was his associate, came out here to be basically the campus pastor. And I've known Elijah a long time. He's from we're out there, we're close to where you're from, and this guy had that swag too. Yeah. So to see them doing what they're doing, and I've went with Elijah to see what they do, and they honored me. They let me sit in the front, and saved me a seat, and and I'm so grateful because you really see all these people in the industry coming to hear the word. These guys are preaching the word, man. Yeah. They really are preaching the word. And so then Hillsong coming out here and just I don't know if you saw, but recently Carl Lentz gets online and basically says, we believe in speaking in tongues. We believe in healings. We believe in that we can raise people from the dead. And Bill Johnson just spoke at Hillsong. So you see that there's this kingdom thing coming together. Whether people want to like what's going on or believe that Kanye's really saved, you cannot deny what's going on. Now, I got to be honest, I'm a little bit different. Like, I don't promote what I do in the industry because most of the people that I work with, they wouldn't feel safe with me if I was letting people know I was working with them. They want to come and really tell me stuff that's really going on that cannot get out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I want to hit on that for sure. But going back to this thing, so you feel like this actually could be like a legit move of God. Yeah,
it definitely could, and
which is interesting because normally a move of God because it seems really like unlegit.
Well, here's the thing, man. I'm a Southern boy by heart, and when you live in these little towns, you can preach about Hollywood being the devil all day.
Yeah.
But when half of your congregation works in that industry, You can't say that.
Wow.
Because most of our people in our churches work somewhere in the industry. They may not be an actor,
Sure.
but they're doing something.
Sure.
So this is the people that we deal with here. So things look different for us. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I may have a guy that's working on the set of Desperate Housewives. You know what I mean? Which is a totally lust-driven show, but he's having a Bible study out there. So how do you even explain that to church people? So I think sometimes the hardest thing about working in entertainment and helping what's going on in LA, it's not LA that's the issue. It's the church people. It's the religious spirit that like wants to like criticize you. Now, don't get me wrong. I agree with some of what the church thinks. You know, some of these guys
Sure.
may be living a compromised life.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Why they're
Sure.
doing this? Because it's very easy. We can talk about that
Sure.
later.
Sure.
But my point is, I do think God is really up to something. I really appreciate, everything that, when I went and heard what's going on with Judah and the people that I've met with Hillsong, and I've heard the messages, I've seen what these guys are preaching, I realize that they're preaching the truth, man, and people want to hear it, and so I really respect what God is doing here, and we all work together, because I have
sure.
people, we're a spirit-filled prophetic movement, so I have people coming from Hillsong just because they want a prophetic word. They're
Wow.
like, I go to Hillsong Church, but I heard here I can get prophesied over.
Yeah.
And so
Like,
so
we'll write you a song, and you give me a prophetic word.
Yeah, it's like we sing their
mutually
songs. Like
beneficial
we
relationship.
need each other,
Yeah.
man. It's like we're not them. I'm not funny like Judah is.
Yeah.
So half of those kids would probably never want to hear me.
Yeah.
But I can cast the devil out of them if they need it. Does that make sense? And so it's team ball, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome. That is so awesome. Yeah, and I think it's just easy to be critical.
Yeah.
Because of the packaging,
Right.
And also because of the people that are being discipled. Like, it's easy to be critical of Pastor
Right.
Judah,
Right.
Because of course it is a little funny in Seattle. Like, I have a lot of friends at church home. It'll always be City Church. I always call it City
absolutely.
Church. But usually whenever I chat with anybody from City, it's like, and Bieber's
Right.
in her, so that's always, it's usually always synonymous with Bieber. Now, if you're a part of that culture, that's awesome. They take great pride in the fact that Justin is a member of their congregation.
Right.
But if you're outside of that,
Right.
of that tribe, then it's very easy to be critical of that,
Right.
because you're like, well, isn't Justin a part of your, just depending
Right.
on the season,
Right.
And so, so I have seen, especially within more of the charismatic stream, a lot of just accusation against this kind of new, I don't know what you even call it.
Right.
I've even heard guys call it like this new pseudo Pentecostal hipster kind of church, but that does seem unfair.
Yeah.
Because there does seem to be a real divine like momentum,
Right.
and something sovereign on it, and it feels like God's doing something
Right.
really new and fresh here in LA, man.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of times it's with any movement. People don't, when you look at a movement, don't look at sometimes just only the fruit. If you were to come to our movement, there's people in mine and your stream that are a little bit unique. Okay?
Yep.
But that doesn't mean you're teaching them to be that way.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
You go to Bethel, there's thousands of students there that may be idolizing that they're at Bethel, but that doesn't mean there's something wrong with Bill Johnson.
Yeah, you're
You know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think with Judah and
It's a
those
great
guys,
point.
there is a bunch of Hollywood kids that probably go there to see who's there. You know what I mean?
Sure,
And they think
sure,
they're cool because
sure.
they're at City Church or whatever you want to call it. But that doesn't mean that Judah is trying to make that happen. If you hear what these guys are preaching, they're preaching the word of God, man. So, you judge people by their fruit, but the reality is when you have such a big celebrated thing, you're gonna gain people that sometimes we judge the leadership by what's going on.
Great point.
And
Yeah,
if
great
you
point.
really look at Beaver, one of the things that I mean, it blew my mind when I read in the media that he cut off a lot of his friends that
Wow.
are millionaires.
Wow.
I don't hang with you guys anymore. I'm only going to hang with these guys.
Wow.
That is a very bold statement that doesn't really help you in the industry to start cutting people off in the industry.
Right.
And you make it known that you're going to do that. I don't want
Right.
to talk about that, but if you read Bieber's life, when he radically started changing, he told certain friends, I'm not hanging out with you no more. And to me, that's good fruit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And also, when it comes to celebrities, so
Yeah.
there is definitely a celebrity culture that exists in LA that would not exist in Seattle.
Right.
And when it comes to celebrities, humanity feels empowered, enabled, even encouraged to judge celebrities. It's one of those areas where if everybody gets to celebrate these people for their achievements,
right,
then we feel like we're equally obligated,
right,
to tear them down for not measuring up to our standard of perfection, you know. And even in the church we feel that same we feel that same way. There'd be a different measure of judgment that we would use towards Justin Bieber than what we'd use towards our own kids,
right?
You know, and so it's very that would be a very interesting contrast,
right,
when it comes to how do you do discipleship? How do you disciple someone where that's underneath that much pressure and underneath that much expectation to continually deliver? Because if they don't, their livelihood, their very sense of identity could be rooted in their performance.
I think it's a real gray area, and until you're in that moment with them, you really just have to be led by the Spirit, man, because they are children of God. Mm-hmm. They are called. And so either it's like sometimes we look at it black or white, you know, like, well, you know, this person's dealing with this, so I can't help them, and then it's or I got to go all the way and compromise to help them, you know. And I think sometimes when you're in the moment, because I got to be honest, man, you know, I remember being around I forgot one of the Baldwin brothers' names. I'm sorry, I think it was Stephen Baldwin. Was it Stephen that got saved? Stephen Baldwin? I was with him. I met him, and I was with another influential person, and that dude was more radical than most church people.
Wow.
Like, he was like raw. He was like, yo, if you don't get saved, you're going to hell.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I think because we're not in those moments, we don't know what's going on. You know, for all we know, Justin could be in there like laying hands and pouring oil. Because most of the people that I've met, when they become radical in that industry, they get intense, man. Now, there are some compromise. And I think because we've seen a lot of people claim Christianity and also compromise, we kind of judge everybody in one basket. But you can't, man. Like I said, it's very bold for somebody like Justin to say, I'm not hanging out with these friends anymore. Yeah. I'm only going to hang out. Now you see pictures of him with that whole crew of pastors on a regular basis. Yeah. To me, it's like, obviously something's radical there, man.
Yeah, and he wears shirts now. Yeah. So that's the fruit of repent. You know, like, I mean, you don't have to wear shirts. I mean, it's not nowhere. Okay, so now let's talk about pastoring and influence. So you have all these church plants now that are coming for this very reason. Like, you have all, like, we're gonna come and we're gonna win we're gonna be a church of celebrities. You know, how do we get Denzel here? You know, like, and so, but you have all these, and they're meeting in nightclubs, and they all, you know, and now I'm not dissing them. I'm not saying that this is bad, or, you know, I think that people are being called by God to LA. At the same time, you got these guys that are pastoring here. They're leaders, salt and light, and they are being invited. They're starting to penetrate scenes and circles, and they're being invited to parties. They're being invited to different tables. And so, talk to us about this place of how do you know, as a leader in the kingdom, that you're actually the one bringing the influence, that you are actually the influencing, catalyzing agent, versus maybe even being used for your own standing and connection and that kind of thing?
Well, I think if I can answer that in two parts. Yeah. First and foremost, when I came to Los Angeles, I never had a desire to reach people in the industry. I never did. I mean, I was in the hood. And God's Spirit broke out, and He brought people to our church that I didn't even know who they were, bro. And what's crazy is the night, if I would have known who they were, I wouldn't have preached the sermon I preached that night, because I would have been insecure to say that stuff. I said some pretty hardcore things that I would have talked myself out of. Totally. But it hit them hard. Wow. And so I get a little bit nervous when people come here to reach Hollywood. Mm-hmm. I think you need just to reach your neighborhood. Amen. You know, because God spoke to me, and anytime there was ever a temptation to pursue these doors that He was opening for me to reach more influential people, He would tell me no. And He would say, you love on people that nobody knows. Wow. So that one day I can trust you with people that everybody knows. Wow. That's good. But don't ever let these people that everybody knows be your reputation. Hide them. Because I don't want their fame to highlight you. And so throughout years of doing that, there were times where I was all over the news, man, like Fox, CNN News, just because I was helping, troubled stars. And I was scared to death because I'm thinking, man, I'm an ex-drug addict. I got a lot of bad history before I got saved. And now the whole world's going to see me and somebody's going to try to, and not one time, it's interesting, even on TMZ, not one time did they ever say anything bad about me. And it's because I stayed hidden.
Wow.
I think they knew that I was not trying to take these situations and make myself even greater. Because I've been asked to be on shows before, like whether it be a talk show or whatever, and I refused to be on it because I know God told me not to do it.
Wow.
Because he keeps this hidden thing where it's like, don't let this build who you are. Let me build who you are.
That's good. That's
and
really
so,
good.
I got to be honest. You definitely have those temptations, and you kind of learn in those temptations to stay hidden. And so for me, seeing people come here, I think they just need to really pray. I really think, you can just look at Judah and Carl and all these guys and see the grace on their life. But I don't necessarily know that. I don't know why they did what they did, but I think sometimes people see that and they want that, and just stay in your lane, man. Mm-hmm. If God calls you to Los Angeles, don't go after a certain type of people. Go after the people that God puts around you. And to be honest, if you're trying to reach very influential people, the first thing you need to do is ask yourself why. Like, why am I doing this? Is this God?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because for me, it didn't happen that way. I kind of fell into situations that I was more scared. Because I'm thinking, okay, you write something bad about this actor on TMZ, it's not going to hurt them. You write something about me, my little church job is over.
Right.
You know
Totally.
what I mean? Totally. So as I started getting more and more involved, I had to learn what this season was, because you find yourself in this room with 10 famous people and they're very, very corrupted. But here's the thing. They love us. Because we speak life, man. We speak peace. We speak joy. And most of these people, they're so narcissistic that they're all trying to screw each other over the whole day. And you're the only one in there going, you're awesome, man. I believe in you. Right. And so they love us, and then they want us around them all the time.
Wow.
So it's really kind of like David and Saul, where Saul wanted David to play the harp. That's kind of what it is. They've got so much stuff in their life that they want us around. Now, here's the tricky part. The tricky part is you're blown away that you know this person, and they're friends with you. Mm-hmm. And it's not hard to do that. It's real easy to climb up the ladder here in Hollywood. That doesn't mean you're making money. It doesn't mean they're going to your church. It just means you know people, because everybody knows somebody that knows somebody.
Sure.
But now you're in the room and you're the coolest person there, and everybody loves you being there because you carry the glory of God. And that's just the favor on our lives. And so now you're sitting in the room with these people, and there's this temptation to where, do I need to stand for what's right? Or do I need to keep this friendship? Because they're going to be doing stuff around you that are not what you would normally be around.
Wow.
Whether it's pursuing chicks or girls or guys or whatever. Yeah. Drugs, manipulating a situation.
Chicks.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. But they're doing this. And so what happens is you're thinking, okay, me being here, is this enabling this person?
So it starts getting shady. And you're in the room, and you're like, what's my role here and now?
Yeah, and so then you
feel pressure because you don't want to,
you don't want to ruin that relationship, but you don't want to compromise.
That's right.
And so then you didn't do anything wrong, but you saw it. Wow. And then you go home and you're like, well, it's cool. And now you're back with your normal church people, and you're like thinking in your head, y'all don't know what I did last night. I was hanging out with da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And I think there's this place where you have to learn that who you really are. And I think what's helped me is that I started really standing for what was right.
Wow.
I started just saying, hey man, I don't want to be involved in that, dude. And what's interesting is that people respected me more. See, you're afraid to stand for what's right, but they'll actually respect you more because they know that they can't move you, because everybody in the city, they can move.
Wow.
They can convince people to do stuff. And I think sometimes God protects people from those moments that are believers, because he knows you're liable to make a serious mistake if you get around these people. And I got to be honest, I was single when I started doing this. There was a lot of stuff that I had to grow through. A lot of times where God had to discipline me and correct me because I was around something that I didn't need to be around, or I had thoughts, or even sometimes acted out on certain things that I shouldn't, because I don't want to ruin that relationship. And I don't think God punishes us, but I think God will give you those opportunities so that He gives you grace so that you can take risk and then learn, okay, here's my boundary. Because that's what I teach my actors today. The people in my church, I'm like, listen, if you're called to this, which I think if you're really called to the industry, you have that job description. I think pastors need to be careful saying they're called to that. But I think if you're an actor or a producer or a musician, yes, that's the guy I want to equip to go in and change the world there, because he works there. So what I teach them, I'm like, listen, okay, you went to a party, you blew it. Do you still feel called to that? Yes. Okay, run back to holy ground and let's get you strong and let's learn boundaries. So there was a time I was living in Hollywood as a single guy, and it was the worst year of my life because I was in the enemy's playground. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I learned I don't need to live here. Yeah. So I moved to Orange County. And I drove there when I knew it was the Lord, so that I wasn't surrounded around that temptation all the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
But God still uses me in that stuff. I didn't run from it. I ran towards, how are you helping me grow in this area? And so I like to say that to people that feel called to the industry. But I think people that are called to the industry, like, let's not try to build our reputation in church. Even if you're an actor or a producer, don't run around getting a bunch of church people going, oh, he's a producer. Most real producers don't talk about what they do in church. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Church is a place we should come to worship God, to celebrate, and to make Jesus the reason why we're there. And so, it's a dangerous calling, but you got to have a grace for it. And I think if you do have that grace for it, to give just a one-liner or maybe a two-liner, if you do have that grace for it, you will learn yourself in this, what works best for you.
Yeah. Hey, that's huge. That's helpful. And the other thing is, I mean, just hearing you talk, I mean, these are things that these are areas where we make judgments on scenarios and situations and atmospheres that we know nothing about.
Right.
So when you're talking, you're giving circumstances and things that the average person would never even think about being put in that kind of jeopardizing type situation. So that's where I feel like this kind of conversation is actually very helpful for just inspiring more grace in our hearts for the guys that are actually in the trenches and that are actually doing this. So I think it's really helpful. Yeah. Let's talk about this idea of celebrity culture.
Right.
Celebrity culture and its place within the church.
Right.
So we're certainly seeing a like for example, the way that pastors dress today, right? If you had dressed that way 40, 50 years ago, you would have been thrown out of the church. To be like, you can't wear a hat in here. Like, this is holy ground, right? And then, like, so like on one end, like, awesome. It's so great that there's freedom, to be us. On the other hand, there is almost like a new wave of spiritual authority in the church, but with it is it's coming pastor brands and all this kind of thing. What's your own philosophy or take on celebrity culture in the church? Is it just like, hey, that's just the way it is? That's the church. That's the future of the church. Get used to it. Is there? Do you feel like a warning in that, or are you optimistic? What do you think?
Well, I think it's both, to be honest. I think in one hand we are shifting into a new season. Mm-hmm. I think in some of it's really good, and I think some of it is probably because it's such a highlighted, celebrated thing that there are people that probably need more healing that are trying to pursue that at the same time. So I think it's both. I think we are in a new generation. We are in a new season. It is really cool now to use social media and to promote what God is doing. Mm-hmm. And I think God really uses that. I think people like me and you who kind of were raised by the older generation, we're a little bit kind of caught in the middle. Like, am I promoting myself? You know what I mean? Yeah. But at the end of the day, there is a purity to it. But I think there's also some people that may need to check their heart on why they're doing what they're doing. It's like I remember one of the craziest years of my life working, with people in the industry. A publicist came to our church and wanted to do PR for me, wanted to take me and make me bigger than what I was. And she was like, I'll get you in these magazines and I'll get you in that because you're working with this person. And I said, I don't want to be in any of that. Yeah. Because I knew that that wasn't the right heart.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and she blew me away. She said, "You're the first pastor that's ever said that."
Wow.
She said, "You know, most pastors want my connections in entertainment to make them cooler."
Yeah.
I said, "No, you know, I don't want that." So I know what's right for me.
Yeah.
I know that I need to sit in the middle seat on the plane. I know that
Yeah.
I need to, you know, stay low, because I know the temptation of what I can fall into, and I just don't feel right about it. No, so sometimes when I do see people trying to be too cool in church, I don't really like it, to
Yeah.
be honest with you, because I know, now I can't judge them because I don't know what's going on in their heart, but I know that it sets this tone that we're trying to create this place where God can move and make it cool and fashionable, you know, and it's only can be beautiful people that dress a certain way, and it makes it to where, what about the people that don't look like that? What about the people that don't have that in their church? Like, how do they fit in with you? You know, if I were to send a person from the inner city who doesn't have but 2 outfits and they smell really bad, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
really trying to seek God, and they got like a broken family and tattoos all over their face. Are they going to be able to come to your church and feel Jesus?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or they're going to feel out of place because they don't look like everybody and they don't hang out in the cool clique. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So to me, it's cool, but it can divide things a little bit, you know? And so, I've always been that guy that tries to keep balance in what we do as in the kingdom, because I think the kingdom is very balanced. You know what I mean? So I think it can be, I think it can be off, but I love God, because even though it's like right now, like we were talking about seeing Bill Johnson go and preach in some of these cool churches. To me, I love Bill, and I know Bill's going to
Yeah.
go in there and
Yeah.
and he ain't going,
Yeah.
he's going to
Yeah.
preach what he preaches.
Yeah, right,
So
right.
to see him doing that shows that these people are really, you know, they really want what's kingdom in their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to see. So I think at the end of the day, God loves us all enough that no matter what goes on, we serve a good God that knows how to put the children of Israel in check. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's right. No, that's good. I mean, it almost seems like, you know, in the 80s you had like stuff that got big in the
Yeah.
charismatic kind of scene, right?
Right.
So like big, like, yeah, like churches with amusement parks, big, you know, like huge, flashy, like insane amounts of wealth coming in,
Right.
and then with that you had like the 80s kind of scandals that took place within the church,
Right.
Then it almost felt like the pendulum swung completely the other way, where it was almost like this embracing of charismatic ghetto-ness,
Right.
for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, where it was like, we don't even want the money, like get the money out of here, money's evil.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
make sure that, you know, if you're the pastor, that like you might have money, but make sure that you don't show it, you know, like buy a crappy car, you know,
Yeah.
and then, you know, don't ever tell anyone, you know. So it felt like things might have swung the other direction, and now it definitely feels like things are swinging back, not into a corruption or anything, but into this place of even just using the word cool pastor.
Yeah.
Like that. Whoever thought that there'd be a day when there'd be cool pastors? You know what I'm saying? Like, or like cool churches, or dude, hipster church. Like, whoever thought those
Yeah.
two words would be used in the same sentence? So like, it's pretty amazing to actually see what's taking place. It's also, you also just are just wanting to make sure that
Yeah.
that underneath the appearance,
Right.
that you got something that's really, you know, that,
Well, you know, I'm sorry, go ahead,
Yeah,
bro.
go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is that I think for me, I'm still young, and I thank God for Papa Che, you know. I thank God for Bishop Sharona, these guys, Cindy, who are constantly speaking into my life. I think at the end of the day, we're all being developed. And I think, you know, I remember hearing Furtick preach at the Bethel conference, and he said something that
Bethel had Furtick?
Yeah, they did.
Whoa.
At Heaven Come, man.
Yeah.
And he said something that really touched my heart, and it made me really want to love him.
Yeah.
I love him already because we're
Yeah.
both from South Carolina.
Okay.
But he said, you know, when he first blew up, you know, he was so young, he didn't really know anything. And he
Wow.
said he had more pastors and Christians criticizing him. And he's like, man, I was this young guy trying to figure out how to handle all this. And so, you know, you watch this guy's church just explode. And he's super anointed. You and I both know that boy's got the Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you just heard his heart coming out saying, I got so much criticism, but no one actually, it's like nobody realized I was just young. Man, I'm trying to figure out, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out how to do this. And so I think for me, the way what I would love to see is that if these guys are young and they're doing something great for God, as long as they are open to receiving help from some of the generals and some of the fathers, and they want relationship with them, we should give these guys a chance, man, and love on them and realize they're in the same process you and I are in. They just got a lot more people watching. Because if you would have watched mine in your life growing, I mean, bro, God, I don't know about you, but I'm telling you, I have been through it, man.
Yeah.
If I was that well known when I was growing in ministry, 20 years, I've been in ministry 22 years, okay?
Yeah.
If you saw it, I would have no following right now because I needed to be spanked, disciplined. You know what I mean? And so for me, I'm looking at it. I'm going.
Thank
okay,
God there wasn't Facebook when we were high
thank
school.
God.
You know?
I mean, that's why. I mean, I'm glad that now I'm starting to really, really get where I'm at with Che, because I needed so much healing, man, as a young leader. You know what I mean? And so I think with these guys, knowing that there's people in their life, we just gotta have a lot more grace, man, because they're really in the same process we are, just more people are watching. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the moment they're not inviting the generals in their life, and they don't want help, and they don't want these men and women around them, that's when we got to be careful. Does that make sense?
Totally. All right, now let's go further. All right, so you got cool pastors for the first time in human history, and that is inspiring a younger generation of aspiring. Like, you got all these young cats that are like,
yeah,
I could do that. Like they see Stephen Furtick and they're like, please, I could totally do that. They see Pastor Jay and they're like, I could do that 10 times better, 15.
Right.
So are you seeing that I mean, because I do think that with the rise of cool pastors, like celebrity pastors, it's inspiring a next generation where instead of being like, I want to be a movie star, I want to be a rock star, maybe you got young guys that are like, I want to be a pastor.
I think the time that we're living in, there's a lot of factors that play into that, and I'm glad you asked that question, because this is something that's been on my heart, and probably one of the first places I've ever really shared it. Mm-hmm. When I was growing in God, if you wanted to be a pastor, man, you had to vacuum floors and clean toilets. You know what I mean? Like, I came from the generation that I think my age group is probably part of the last ones left that would learn this from the older generation. Right. We learned that if you got a job, you started at the bottom and you worked your way to the top. You didn't run around trying to find the CEO position. Does that make sense?
Right, totally.
So I think there's that missing element, because I see millennials today, or not, I don't want to say millennials, even the next generation after that, what I think they call them Generation Z or something like that.
Yeah, Alpha.
Yeah, Alpha.
Gen Z and then
Gen
Alpha.
Z, yeah. They get everything instantly. And so we've told them that they're the best, they're everything, and now, when they go to college and it's hard, they want to switch majors because fashion school ain't that easy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so what happens is that when it comes to being involved in church, they want that fast too. They want that, I want to speak to the nations now, and I want to do this now. But yet they have not went through, really the grooming of what it means to really follow Jesus. Because you and I both know it's not about all that. The lady that's in the back of the room that's praying, the old grandma that prays every Sunday for you and I to speak, that woman is going to have an amazing spot in heaven, man.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think through the cool church and people being celebrated as leaders, which is not a bad thing. I want to say that on the record. I'm probably one of the most honoring people that I know. I know that sounds prideful, but I honor people, man.
Yeah.
I'm close to Che and these generals because I honor them so much.
Wow.
And I'm old enough that I could be doing my own thing.
Yeah.
But I haven't, because I have so much honor for them. So I believe in honor. But what I think is sometimes these younger guys, they want that so fast. And I think it's a mixture of them really wanting to change the world, but them really wanting to be someone at the same time. And I think that thing of wanting to be someone, that journey that I had to go down for 20 years to knock that out of me, is what they haven't experienced yet. So then when you're young and you're good looking and you're fiery. I mean, bro, when I was in my 20s, skinny and, just all my hair and I had a lot of influence. I mean, I had a lot of influence on young people because, when you're young and you got the fire like that, youth reach youth. Young people reach young people. It's not. I don't necessarily think I was more anointed back then. I think I was cooler back then. So I had way more influence over how cool I was. So what ends up happening is that these guys, they get a pulpit or they get influence over their church and their young people. And then you got these older pastors who are inviting them to come speak because they don't have anything going on in youth. And they're like, buddy, can you come speak to our church and you preach to our young people and you can preach, on a Sunday because I want them to see a young fireball. Right. And so these guys start getting excited about this opportunity and yet then start quoting some of the things that some of these generals quote that you have not done what these generals have done. You start creating leadership things and wanting to mentor people and you're only in your 20s. And I got to be honest, man, like there's some people that will listen to you, but the reality is, man, is that we even my own life, and I'm not knocking anybody who does this, but I haven't wrote a leadership book. I think I could help people with youth ministry because I got 20 years in it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I'm kind of too old to even do it anymore. Yeah. So I'm kind of respected in that. Right. But I'm not trying to, because I see these other big guns saying certain things, trying to do that. So one of the things, like I see young guys saying stuff like, if you want to preach one day, you can't preach and you can't have this stage until you've done da-da-da-da-da. Until you've been through what I've been through, you don't have you know what I mean? And these are young guys saying that. Now, if Lou Engle says that to me and you, yeah. I hear him, man. The guy's got 30, 40 years of all types of stuff to rebuke me and you.
Absolutely.
But you and I don't need to be saying that to young people for two reasons. Number one, we're still young pups, man, and we need to respect that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Number two, what we're saying to the next generation is that what we get to do is because we've done something and we're making the stage the arrival point.
Wow.
So we're telling our people that until you've done what walk through my shoes, you don't need to be up here. So what do they want to do? Now they turn around and they go, well, that's what I need to do. I need to do some more stuff so I get to do what you do. So we make the stage the destination when really the stage to me is a locker room. We're coaches equipping our people how to go outside the church to win. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do have young leaders around me. I've got a handful of them that are called to be in ministry. But I'm trying to get us to die to this thinking that let's get away from celebrating people that are on platforms in churches. Now, we need to honor. We need to honor the men that went before us. I honor Papa Che. Every time he preaches, I'm there to listen, take notes. I love him. I'm all about that. But what I'm saying is like these guys are our veteran generals that, yes, we get around them and we have completely honor. But when we start doing that towards one another, it's not that if you were to come to my church, bro, I wouldn't honor you. Mm-hmm. We would superly honor you. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is I think some of these guys that are getting these opportunities right now, they're becoming prideful. Because people listen to them and they're making their positions seem like they've earned it. Instead of saying, no, I have laid down my life for Jesus outside of this church on a daily basis. I pray. I read my Bible. I share the gospel. I embarrass myself for Jesus by doing the right thing sometimes. And that's what we want to point people towards. Not pointing people towards, because really 99% of Christians are not pastors. So we're making ourselves seem cool. The younger generation, like we're the cool guys and we get to speak in front of a lot of people because it's cool and this is I worked hard to get here. Does that make sense? And I'm the man and you haven't done what I've done to be able to do this. And I'm like, bro, chill. I don't even want people wanting to do this.
Right.
I love what I get to do, but I need them going out to their jobs, to their high schools. I need them going out in their neighborhoods, learning how to be good dads and husbands. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and don't you think also that a lot of people look at like pastoral ministry, for example, and they think that 50, 60, 70% of it is preaching.
Right.
Yeah. And the reality is that what percentage of our job, not that it's a job, but like what percentage of our job is actually actually involving microphones, is actually involves a stage.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people they lust for the stage and then they get a title and they realize the very small amount of time that you're ever actually on stage,
Yeah.
and that you actually have a platform, and that 98% of pastoral ministry is sitting at tables with people, with real people, with leaders, like diving through issues, and not just listening to issues, but actually being able to courageously lead through chaos, through organizational chaos, through personal chaos. Like, you actually have to be able to manage life's affairs. If you can't make a decision, if you can't decide what shirt you're going to wear this morning, you have no business,
Right.
Because preaching is such a little part of the
Right.
of the thing. I mean, and then I think that there needs to be, and thank God, there's such an emphasis right now on leadership and what leadership is, and that's being delivered with, but that's the part of, I think, ministry that a lot of people don't see.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think, bro, for me, it's like I always tell people I plan 30% of my schedule and I leave the 70 other % for time bombs to go off, because they always go off.
Right.
The explosions that happened yesterday.
Yeah,
just
that's
as
a
I'm
book.
dealing with people.
Yeah.
And just having the capacity to be able to handle that.
Yeah.
And do the right thing and not let it mess me up, and then be able to get up there and speak a message and not even preach about that.
Wow.
That's
right.
because
Yeah.
most people, they preach what's going on around them. You hear
absolutely.
about something and you start preaching about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's actually, like you said, it's a majority of our job is learning how to keep our hair on our head, because we're getting so overwhelmed with stuff. That's what ministry is. It's like knowing how to walk in the opposite spirit, because everything, you're dealing with people's lives, man. And so, I think where I like to see, especially with some of these younger guys, is if I can't even check them over something small in their life, how in the world are they going to handle what I just handled yesterday? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, you and I both know we try to help people and love people, and like we tell them something with love and they hate us for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if I can't confront someone and say, hey, bro, and today we live in a time where we correct people the most loving, fatherly correction. I mean, we've learned from Danny Silk, all these major leaders, how to lovingly call out the gold in you, and you don't even know we're correcting you hardly, and they still get offended. People get offended. So I see these guys that want these stages, want these pulpits, but yet at the same time they feel called to do this stuff, but when I share something that's just minor with them, it messes them up for 2 weeks. So how in the world can they manage what I managed yesterday when I had to deal with a lot of dramatic stuff in people's lives? You cannot. So, you and I both know, especially when you're shepherding a church, it's not, even though if they don't have a problem with you, the fact that there's a problem, it freaks us out.
And can you disciple character into somebody?
Yeah.
Or once, I mean, and are you seeing that, or when you see those behaviors, are those basically red flags, and you put up boundaries, and like I can't take you any further until you develop this character and integrity in this particular area?
Yeah, most of the time I can. I think it depends on relationship. I can't speak into somebody's life if I don't have a relationship with them. And so what I will say is, because of the pendulum swinging so far to where we went from straight back in the days when we were being raised, discipline, getting rebuked. I mean, I've got so many rebuke stories where I was rebuked, to now you're the best. So I think we went extremely over here because of what we needed in my generation to be healed of all the rebukes we got. We've just overly saturated people with identity. So because of that, there's young leaders and young people that have so much infused that they're the best, that when we do disciple them, it's going to take a little bit longer, because they're trying to overcome what we've taught them for 10 years. We've taught them that they're the best, most amazing, awesome leader, and they're going to be revivalists and change the world. And so we've infused them. It's not even really their fault, to be honest. Right. We taught them what we needed to hear. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it worked, and it's great. But like I said, I can disciple them. It's like yesterday. Papa Chase said something to me. It's funny. He was telling me to move out of the aisle because people couldn't come down. For like 10 seconds, I'm like, okay, I blew it. I was standing in the aisle. But it's not that big of a deal. He ain't tripping over that. Yeah. I'm the one tripping over that. Yeah. Now, if I tell a younger person that, they're liable to take 2 weeks to get over that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they've been told everything they do is awesome.
Yeah.
Does that make?
Yeah.
So we just have to be willing to be in it with them. So what took me and you a day to get, when we confront and disciple, it may take them a month to get. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because they're going to go through the emotional ups and downs because, like I said, we've infused that they're the best, and they are the best, but we just need to bring a little bit more balance. And I think if we have relationship, we can. Now, there are people that I do have to just say, hey, you know, like, I can't help you, man. And that's because they're not giving me permission, and they're arguing with me. And there's been times where I've done that and they came back to me broken and ready to receive. And there's been other times that, you know, we just don't have a relationship anymore. But that doesn't mean God's not going to work in their life. You know, like, you know, there were times where I was stubborn and God still got a hold of me later. So I believe God will rescue them.
Amen. 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 Hey, so like 2020 is coming up, new year. How are you, like, what are you kind of like the most excited about as far as something that you feel like the Lord has spoken to you? Maybe something on a back burner is getting moved up to a front burner, but it's requiring for you to kind of like reevaluate your priorities or whatever. Like, so what are you like, where do you feel like, where do you feel like you're gearing up? What's lighting you up as you're forging forward into this next year that's going to lead into this next decade?
Well, you know, I'm super aligned with Cheon, and I think it's beautiful. I think when you align yourself with every leader in your life, eventually God will put you with the leader that you can align with, that his dreams really are part of your dreams.
Wow.
You know, I can't say that all the stuff that I did before were my alignment really matched what that dude was living for. But with Papa Che, everything he loves, I love.
Wow.
And if you could cut me open and without Che being there and saying, what do you want to do? It's everything he wants to do.
Wow, that's amazing. That's incredible.
So, you know, one of the things we're doing is we're really trying to, you know, a lot of these generals are realizing that it's time to focus on their regions.
Okay.
So right now, you know, coming up, you know, you're going to have Sean Bowles, Ed Savoso, Bill Johnson, Chris Valentin, and Cheon doing 3 conferences across the up and down the West Coast talking about how to reform California.
Wow.
So these guys are focused on their city. You know, Papa Che's now the senior pastor again at HRock Church. And he's really wanting to reach the harvest of California, and our heart is to plant 10,000 churches, church plants through our HIM network, but also satellite campuses through HRock. And so I'm helping him with both of those.
Wow.
And, you know, God gave him a vision called California Dreaming. And it's a cool stuff. You can look it up and read about it. But what we've done is we've done these huge Dream Fest where we go out, we feed people, we clothe people, we gather them, bouncy castles, fun, and we give away bikes, TVs, whatever, and then they hear the gospel. And I think we did 2 of them this summer, 2 or 3, I don't remember. And you're talking about 1,000 people getting saved, man. You know, and one's, you know, anywhere from 700 to 1,000 almost getting saved at every one of them. You know, these are people that just came from the world.
Yeah.
And then our hearts to plant churches and campuses. So right now, what I'm excited about is because of the hub that we have at HRock, between Papa Che's, you know, his influence and the anointing and the revival on our church, and my little bit of influence being a younger leader who's been in it a little while now. We've gathered a lot of these radicals that we're really raising up, that we believe we're, you know, so for me, I'm passionate about raising up my guys. Like, I've got some young guys that are just powerhouses, and they're very discipled and they're very aligned. And it's amazing because a lot of people think you can't have that anymore.
Wow.
You know, you don't see these young guys that are coming underneath that real covering and alignment, that are waiting for their turn and doing the other things that nobody wants to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I've got guys and girls that are actually doing that. So to raise up them right now to carry that real inheritance that Papa Che has and our church has, and to really multiply all over this city, to plant satellite campuses and life groups that are growing into satellite campuses, and to eventually see HIM, you know, these pastors helping them multiply, because I'm a life group guru, you know what I mean? Like, I'm all about that, man. I'm all about, you know, house churches that are connected to a church, you know what I mean? And so I love that stuff. I love multiplication. I'm into church growth. I'm a church growth strategist. I'm a baby one, but I you know, I don't I don't want to underestimate myself either, because this is all I think about.
Sure.
But to really help with that process with Papa Che on executing all these things and seeing us raise up leaders, seeing us multiply, and seeing us really, you know, do a hostile takeover, man, and reform California and see people get saved. You know, there's a story in the Bible that really is my heart. I love how people sit in church when we talk about Reformation, but listen, man, singing and dancing is not going to change a city.
That's right.
It's part of it.
Yeah.
We got to get hyped up to go on to do it.
Yeah.
But we can't sing and dance and think that that's going to change a city, man.
That's right.
What happened when you see Peter and John, when they were, healed the man, they got arrested. But right before they got arrested, thousands of people got saved. And all of a sudden, they were about to, they wanted to kill Peter and John, but they said, hey, we can't do anything because there's thousands of people outside. And if we hurt these guys, there's going to be a riot outside. Remember that?
Yeah.
They had to let them go. And the reason why they had to let them go, because they were outnumbered. And see, for me, that's how we change cities.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We can talk about politics. We can talk about revival. We can pray in tongues all day long. But if we don't actually go out and win people to Jesus and disciple them, how do we change California? We win people to Christ. We plant more churches, win more people to Christ, so that we can change the votes, so that we can change politics. You see, if we win over this whole city that you and I live in, we make the rules.
That's right.
And we can apply the kingdom rules. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of where my heart's at.
That's awesome. That's amazing. That's incredible. And I love what you're doing with these festivals. I love how you guys are thinking governmentally as far as not just salvations, but salvations and discipleships and this larger kind of Reformation culture. I mean, it's awesome, man. And we began this conversation just by me really just affirming your leadership and just the tremendous amount of influence that you had on me in such a short amount of time, and it's just cool to go deeper with that relationship today, but it's going to be amazing to continue to watch what Jesus does through you, through Papa Che, through HRock here in California, man. So thanks so much for creating this time in this space.
Yeah.
It's awesome, man.
Thank you. Well, man, I really love your heart, and I know that it's a blessing for me to see someone with such a humility and such a pure heart, and Papa Che, at the end of the day, his passion right now is to see, mine and your age really take our place. Mm-hmm. And when these guys really carry that and they really love that. So to see you doing stuff, because we love media. I mean, we talked about Hollywood and all, but we really want to reach entertainment. We really want to do these things. We're not knocking anybody who's doing it. We just want it to be the pure Jesus.
Yeah, amen.
And that's what you carry, man. Amen. So thank you.
Hey, thanks, Jay. Awesome. Let's do it again.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Come on.
Cool.